everyone, 大家好, and welcome back to Bitesize Mandarin. This is lesson 2, and so we'll be looking at the study article for the week of September the 18th, 2023. So let's plunge face first into the lesson with this sentence from paragraph 3. Now, there are 2 grammar points we can get from here. The first one is 对, and 对 is a preposition that functions as towards, to, at, for, and a few more. Now, just a note on prepositions briefly, what they do is help us see the connection between different parts of a sentence. For example, the child smiled the mum. Of course, we instinctively know what this sentence means, but grammatically speaking, we can't see a connection between the phrases the child smiled and the mum. So this is where we need the preposition at. And now we know the relationship between these 2 parts of the sentence. The verb smile is directed towards the mum. And this is the function of 对. It has this kind of directional feel to it, helping us to understand what or who is the target of a particular verb. So this is the role it plays in a sentence where the subject, the doer, in this case the child, performs a verb, in this case a smile, which is directed towards an object, the person or thing that is on the receiving end or is the target of the verb. So the object is the mum. So in English, it is the preposition at that tells us the smile is directed towards the mum. So it kind of gives us that directional feel, indicating that the mum is the target of the verb. In Chinese, 对 performs this function. So to illustrate, we can think of the child or the doer as a baseball player. We can think of the verb smile as the baseball. Now, who is it being thrown towards? Who is the target of the baseball or the target of the verb? It is, of course, the mum. And this is a very weird game of baseball. But the one final thing we need is the preposition to show us the relationship between these 2 parts of the sentence. And it's at. And so we have child smiled at mum. Now, before we translate, we need to get it in the correct order for the Chinese, and that is child at mum smiled. And now we can translate. 孩子对妈妈微笑. Let's reset the baseball field with this sentence. He said to me. So who is the thrower? Who is the doer of the verb in this case? It's he. And the proverbial baseball, the verb, is said. And who is the target? Who's on the receiving end of the verb? It's me. And we bring in the preposition to show the relationship. To. And so we have he said to me, and then we rearrange to the Chinese order. He to me said, and now we translate. 他对我说. Now let's reset the field again. Can this sentence be translated to 对, she treats you well? In essence, it can, but we need to change it somewhat in order to get into that Chinese mindset. She is good to you, which is the same as she treats him well. But we can get rid of is. And why is that? Well, while English adjectives like good need help from the verb is, Chinese adjectives in most cases have the verb built in, which is why Chinese adjectives can be verbs. So in the description below, I've put a link to a page that explains that nicely. But in a nutshell, most Chinese adjectives can also function as verbs. So that, for example, 好 doesn't just mean good. It also means to be good, is good, are good, and so forth. So with all that being said, we have everything we need. And the baseball player is, of course, she. This is the person or thing performing the verb. And the verb, the baseball, is good. And the target of this verb is you. And now we bring in the preposition, which is to. And so we have she good to you. Let's get that in the Chinese order. She to you good, Translate, 他对你好. Now, the baseball player, or in other words, the doer of the verb, does not have to be a person, and neither does the object or the recipient of the verb. So take this sentence, for example. Vegetables are good for health. We get rid of are, we don't need that where we're going. And now the baseball player, the doer, is vegetables. And the verb is good, which we know is not just the adjective good, it's the verb to be good. And who or what is the target of this verb good? In this case, it's health. Now the preposition to show the directional relationship is for, which gives us vegetables good for health. Rearrange, vegetables for health good. Translate, 蔬菜对身体好. Now, what about a sentence with a couple of additional elements, such as Jehovah knows what is best for us? Well, we can deal with this in two parts. First of all, what is best for us? Let's get rid of is. What best for us? So here now, the baseball player, or the doer of the verb, is actually what, which is acting as a placeholder. So for all we know, it could be vegetables that are best for us. But until we specify it, what acts as a placeholder. The baseball or the verb in this case is best. And the target of this verb is us. The preposition is for. And that gives us what best for us. We rearrange what for us best. Translate, 什么对我们最好? So 最 means most. 好 means good. So 最好 means most good, or in other words, best. Now let's bring back that other element. 耶和华知道什么对我们最好. Jehovah knows what is best for us. So what we've seen so far is how 对 tells us toward what or whom a verb is targeted or directed. But it also does the same for nouns. Take this sentence, for example. Our view of others. So the metaphorical player is our. And what is the baseball? What is being directed towards something or someone? It is the noun view. And who is the target of this noun view? Who's on the receiving end of the view? It's others. And to show the directional relationship, we have yet another preposition. This time it's of. So just as a side point, we can perhaps begin to understand why learners of English struggle with prepositions. It's because there are so many of them that cross over in meaning. So far, we've seen at, to, for, and of. So all of these are covered by 对. It just hoovers them up. So going back to this sentence, our view of others, we of course need to get it into the right order for Chinese, and that is our of others view. And then we translate, but with a slight twist. 我们对别人的看法. So the twist is that we need to add the 的 to show possession. Whose view is it? Whose 看法 is it? It's 我们的看法, our opinion of others, 对别人. 我们对别人的看法. So this is how we say our view of others in Chinese. So not 我们的看法对别人, but 我们对别人的看法. And here's an example sentence with that. 这可能影响我们对别人的看法. This might affect our view of others. 你的信心, your faith. 你对上帝的信心, your faith in God. 研读圣经能加强你对上帝的信心. Studying the Bible can strengthen your faith in God. So this is how we can say strengthen, 加强. 学生的理解, the student's understanding. 学生对圣经的理解 the student's understanding of the Bible. 学生对圣经的理解就越来越深了 the student's understanding of the Bible grew deeper. 耶和华的爱 Jehovah's love. 耶和华对我们的爱 Jehovah's love for us. 耶和华对我们的爱无与伦比 Jehovah's love for us is unparalleled. Just sprinkle some idiomatic seasonings on there. Now, some words are special in that they need to be used with yo in order to form a 对 sentence. So, for example, 帮助,益处. 帮助 is help, 益处 is benefit. We need to add 有 帮助 to turn it into helpful and 有益处 to turn it into beneficial. And then we can use it with 对. 想想这些问题会对你有帮助. Reflecting on these questions will be helpful to you. 学习圣经对我们很有益处. Studying the Bible is beneficial to us. And we can add 什么 to turn these into questions. 想想这些问题会对你有什么帮助? How will reflecting on these questions be helpful to you? 学习圣经对我们有什么益处? How is studying the Bible beneficial to us? So to recap, 对 is a preposition having the function of towards, to, at, or for. It tells us toward whom or what a verb or noun is directed. And one formula for it is subject, 对, object, verb, such as 孩子对妈妈微笑, the child smiled at the mom. Now, just a word of caution, sometimes we have to add an additional element to complete the sentence. For example, 我们对弟兄姐妹显出. This sentence meets the criteria for the above formula, but it's still incomplete. But the fix for this is simple. We just add some love. 我们对弟兄姐妹显出爱心. We show love to brothers and sisters, or whatever it might be. It could be 谦卑, patience, or humility. But now the sentence is complete. A second formula, subject 对 object 的 noun. 孩子对妈妈的爱. So let's go back to the main article, and in fact back to that sentence from paragraph 3. So we've just looked at 对, but now we want to shift our attention to 在方面. So this structure means with respect to, in regard to. But for simplicity's sake, we'll just use with respect to as an example. So using this structure is extremely simple. If you want to say with respect to marriage, we simply take the Chinese word for marriage and drop it between 在 and 方面. 在婚姻方面 means with respect to marriage. Let's reset. Now we want to say with respect to worship. We take the Chinese word for worship and place it between 在 and 方面. 在崇拜方面 with respect to worship. And one more example, with respect to prayer, we take the Chinese word for prayer and ever so gently lay it between 在 and 方面. 在祷告方面 with respect to prayer. So whatever it is with respect to, we take the Chinese word for it and put it between 在 and 方面. Now once we've done that, we can start building sentences around it. 在祷告方面，耶稣是个好榜样. With respect to prayer, Jesus is a good example. Let's just do a few versions of this sentence. 在祷告方面，耶稣是我们的好榜样. With respect to prayer, Jesus is a good example for us. Literally, the translation would be, Jesus is our good example. Here's another variation. 耶稣树立了良好的榜样. Jesus set a fine example. So one way to say set is 树立. And finally, bringing in a point from the last lesson, 耶稣为我们树立了良好的榜样. Jesus set a fine example for us. Moving on to a different sentence. 你觉得耶和华在婚姻方面的规定合理吗? Do you think that Jehovah's standards with respect to marriage are reasonable? So here, 在婚姻方面 is being used in conjunction with 的。你觉得耶和华的规定合理吗？ Do you think that Jehovah's standards are reasonable? 你觉得耶和华在婚姻方面的规定合理吗？ Do you think that Jehovah's standards with respect to marriage are reasonable? So this is something we can do with the 在方面 structure. Another example, 圣经的劝告都非常实用. The Bible's counsel is very practical. 圣经在婚姻方面的劝告都非常实用. The Bible's counsel with respect to marriage is very practical. Of course, we won't always see the exact words with respect to. In fact, this sentence could be rendered, the Bible's counsel on marriage is very practical, and it would still be a 在方面 sentence. Another example, 在崇拜方面，上帝对我们有什么要求? In respect to worship, what requirements does God have? We could say, when it comes to worship, what requirements does God have? So this takes us right back to that sentence from paragraph 3. 在对弟兄姐妹显出爱心方面. So what's going on here? Well, in the middle, we have our issue or topic, 对弟兄姐妹显出爱心, showing love to brothers and sisters. And then that entire phrase has been taken and dropped in between 在方面. And that gives us the sentence, 在对弟兄姐妹显出爱心方面, in showing love to brothers and sisters. So notice it doesn't say with respect to, it simply says in showing love to brothers and sisters. And then it asks a question for reflection. 我做得怎么样？在对弟兄姐妹显出爱心方面，我做得怎么样？ In showing love to brothers and sisters, how am I doing? So as a recap, 在方面 means with respect to, and we can take whatever it is that we want to highlight, whatever topic, and put it in between 在 and 方面. It can be words or it can be entire phrases. So one last point from this article, and this time we're having a look at paragraph 15, where we find this sentence, 没想到参加的人竟然有60个. Now this is a sentence conveying surprise, but in the English sentence, the only thing that conveys that surprise is the exclamation mark. 60 people attended. But in the Chinese, we have two things. Firstly, the word 竟然, which literally means surprisingly. Secondly, and what is our main focus, 没想到, which means did not expect. So this also conveys surprise, like in this sentence, 我没想到对耶和华这么虔诚的姐妹也可以这么好玩. I found it amazing that someone, a sister, so spiritual could be so much fun. So it's something the person didn't expect. It was somewhat of a surprise to her that someone so spiritual could also be so much fun. So perhaps at some point in time, she might have said to the sister, 我没想到你会这样. I didn't think you'd be like this. I didn't expect it, or it surprised me. And one last example. 我邀请了我的同事参加聚会. I invited my colleague to the meeting. 她说她会考虑看看. She said she'd think about it. 当时我觉得她好像没有兴趣. At the time I thought she didn't seem that interested. 没想到她真的来了. But she actually came. 没想到她真的来了. To my surprise, she actually came. And just before we finish, a bonus phrase, 我会考虑看看. I'll think about it. I'll see. So, in this lesson, we've talked about targeting with 对, how to say in regard to with 在方面, and to my surprise, 没想到. In the next lesson, we'll have a look at how to say both A and B, how to say use X to accomplish Y, and an idiom that means to try every means. See you next time.